podcast show for business owners and managers who are passionate about developing people and growing a successful business. And now here's your host, Alistair Booth from the HR Booth.
Welcome back to the channel. In this episode, going to actually discuss a topic that we give quite a bit of advice on to a number of our clients, and it's on the typical kind of challenges that businesses face whilst on a growth journey. One of the biggest challenges that businesses will face is around kind of managing cash flow, and obviously we are not experts in finance, so I will leave any discussions around that to some of the business connections that I have in that field. But what we are experts in is giving advice on some of the people related challenges that companies will encounter whilst on a growth journey, and actually some of that can feed into cash flow, where there's perhaps recruitment challenges, or I've perhaps recruited ahead of the curve and then businesses kind of slow down a little bit, so that does impact on cash. But yeah, I'll leave that to the experts. What I'll discuss today is more on the people related challenges. So there's quite a number of people related challenges that come into a business as you're kind of growing, and it's something that we've witnessed a lot over the years. Been really fortunate in the over 10 years that we've been in business, that I've been really fortunate to work with a lot of kind of SME growth businesses, but also I was really fortunate as well in my career before we set the HR Booth up, that a couple of the roles that I had was in really fast moving growth businesses. So I was able to kind of see that firsthand, being in amongst that at an early stage and just as part of the kind of growth journey. So feel pretty well equipped to give advice on this topic, and as I say, worked with a number of businesses in the last 10 years or so who have been on a growth journey and continue to be on a growth journey, so we can see firsthand some of the challenges that businesses face. So I'll kind of go through these in kind of no particular order, but certainly something that we do see in a kind of growth business, and it can impact on ultimately can impact on the business's kind of bottom line and where that business is heading. So one of the first ones that we see quite often is communication breakdowns, and that's where I suppose if a business is expanding, there needs to kind of be a kind of clear and effective communication, and sometimes that becomes a little bit trickier as businesses growing. You find that teams might kind of start working in kind of silos. There might be misunderstandings around the direction of the business, and then maybe just kind of some inefficiencies kind of creep in there as well. So communication breakdown is certainly something that we see quite a lot. Businesses, I think, that have done really well at overcoming that, I've introduced things like the kind of daily huddle, which is a kind of morning briefing, just to kind of look at some priorities for that day, celebrate success from the previous day, and then kind of plan ahead what's happening on that particular day. So that is something, and I know there's a lot of experts around in terms of coaching and supporting high growth businesses, and that kind of daily huddle rhythm and routine is certainly something that a lot of these businesses kind of recommend, and I say I've seen that kind of firsthand as well. Where you perhaps can't do a regular kind of daily huddle, then you certainly need to kind of be building in something around a kind of weekly update, regular kind of one-to-ones. But you kind of need to make sure that you are trying to kind of break down these communication challenges that are going to kind of face you as your business is growing. When it's you and perhaps one or two individuals in the team, it's a little bit easier. But as you start to kind of scale and grow, you add in different kind of layers, different people, different kind of line management responsibilities. That's where the communication can certainly kind of start to break down. The other one that we see quite a bit is just around, finding talent. So recruitment challenges, or talent acquisition as it's sometimes called, and also retention. So, finding talent and holding on to them, that can become a little bit of a challenge as your business is going through a growth phase. So what you need to be able to do there is understand what type of individuals that you kind of need. That challenge perhaps comes about because you've not got clearly defined job roles, job descriptions. You've probably not thought around your overall employer benefits kind of package and different things like that. So, and you're perhaps not that well known in a growth phase as well. So it's a little bit difficult for individuals to kind of think about working for you because you're perhaps not that well known. So you need to kind of think about what your kind of resourcing strategy is going to be and what your employee retention strategy is going to be, just to allow you to kind of stand out from the competition, get your name out there in terms of the candidate market, and just look at what you're doing to attract and retain talent. So that's certainly something that's a challenge when your business is kind of growing. The other one that we see quite a bit is leadership development. So again, as the business grows, you've maybe set the business up with maybe one or two other kind of co-founders, and you might have kind of good leadership and management experience, but then all of a sudden you've added more people into the business, and you need other people to kind of step into leadership type roles. And again, where sometimes businesses fail is that they've not got that in place, or they maybe promote too quickly without the kind of support and place to kind of help the individuals in these leadership roles kind of do what's required. So that's certainly something that we see as a challenge in a kind of high growth business. So how do you go about developing these leaders, or where do you find these leaders? Do you recruit externally? Do you try and recruit within, or is it a combination of both? And if you're doing it from within, what kind of training and support and coaching have you put in place to make sure they've got the skills to actually deliver on that? So again, that could come at a cost as well in terms of financial cost if it's external training, and obviously there's a time cost as well in terms of that investment. So these are things that you need to consider as you're growing. Another one that we see quite a bit is just, I suppose, a kind of shift in culture. So it becomes the company culture kind of changes as you add different people into the business. So that can be quite challenging at times. Where some businesses perhaps get that wrong is that they don't have a kind of clearly defined kind of purpose or vision, and then within that having a kind of set of core values. So that is certainly something, if you've got that in place early on, it allows you to kind of recruit people who are aligned to these kind of core values, and then obviously that kind of feeds into the type of culture and environment that you kind of create. So ultimately, you as the leader, you want to try and kind of set the standards and set the culture in the business, but ultimately a lot of the culture will be driven by the individuals in your teams. So that can change very, very quickly as well. So not having an understanding of culture in your business will impact on that future growth as well. So that's probably kind of four of the kind of key challenges that I see in a kind of high growth business. But as I say, there's tons of other stuff that could kind of come up. So some of the ways to, I suppose, combat some of these challenges would be, I touched on it earlier around communication, but the daily huddle is a good example. But if you can't do that, it's having regular internal team meetings. And then looking at kind of what the purpose of these meetings are. So nobody just likes attending a meeting for the sake of attending a meeting. So, what's the purpose of the meetings? And then I suppose putting in some kind of housekeeping rules around that: start on time, finish on time, clear agenda, clear purpose, and then make sure that any actions are kind of followed through. And, that certainly from a team kind of meeting perspective is certainly something that's important. But outside of that, so there might be the kind of formal kind of meetings that take place or regular meetings, but you need to kind of think about different communication tools that you can use just to foster collaboration, just to make sure that everyone is aligned and on the same page. So that could be using technologies such as Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever your kind of video kind of conferencing might be, but other internal communication tools such as Slack and different things like that could work. So just making sure that you've got regular communication in place, and where you can't do that online is making sure that there's a kind of good offline kind of option available for your teams to do that. The other one was around talent. So just investing in talent. So make sure that you are looking at good competitive benefits packages, making sure that you've got good growth opportunities for individuals. So I've touched on this in a previous episode where, as part of an employee benefits package, people want to kind of learn and grow. So what does your investment around talent kind of look like? And have you got a process where people can kind of grow in your business? And then obviously, as part of investing in talent, you spend all that time recruiting individuals, whether that's through a recruitment agency or doing it yourself. what you need to kind of make sure is that you've got a really well-oiled onboarding kind of process that, you know, make sure that you can hire properly, but then integrate your new hires with the business, your culture, your systems, your processes, etc. So having a good onboarding program is definitely something you need to kind of look at. And in terms of leadership development that I touched on, you know, there might be some funding available. So certainly if you're a Scottish-based business, I can put a link in the show notes around that, but there's some funding through the Flexible Workforce Development Fund. Scottish Enterprise also run a number of workshops and programs. We can also deliver some people management related workshops as well, and we've done that pretty successfully. But again, well connected with a lot of good kind of training providers and learning providers and consultants, so they can deliver some of that as well. But more importantly, you want to try and be identifying the potential leaders in your organisation and making sure that you're going through some kind of mentoring program, coaching program, or a training program to allow them to do what you need them to do to manage your teams in the future. And then ultimately, you know, when you've got leaders in the organisation, it doesn't kind of just stop there. You need to kind of make sure that you've got a process for continuous learning. Leadership skills are something that need nurtured at all levels, and leadership is something that's evolving all the time. So even things like, you know, kind of sharing podcasts or TED Talks, or, you know, maybe some YouTube videos and clips that you've seen, there's different kind of hints and tips out there that can be really beneficial just to I suppose continually encourage and develop your leaders within the business. And then the final part, just on culture shift. So some of the things that you could be doing there is, you know, review your company values. So, you know, if that's something that you did when you founded the business and then you've been on a growth journey, you know, perhaps maybe 5 years later, are they values still relevant to where they were perhaps 5 years ago? So they still fit for purpose, and do your individuals and the you know, your teams understand what your kind of core values are, and are they kind of lived and breathed throughout the organisation? So not just on a poster in the, you know, the foyer or on the walls or in the toilets or in your breakout rooms. Do they actually represent what your business kind of stands for? So that is certainly something you need to kind of revisit on a regular basis, and then just make sure that you know, core values are lived and breathed. So, you know, when you're making recruitment decisions, whether it's promotion decisions or feedback at employee check-ins and one-to-ones, that you're actually talking about the core values and how people kind of live up to that. So these are probably just 4 of the kind of key challenges that I've seen in a high growth business or a business going through a growth phase, and hopefully some useful kind of hints and tips around how to deal with some of these issues. There's probably tons more content that I could share around that, and that might be something we'll kind of do at a later date. But, you know, as before, if you've got any questions on anything in this episode, or any questions around anything else kind of people related you want to kind of chat about, then you can check us out on the website, which is www.thehrbooth.co.uk. You can also find me online via info@thehrbooth.co.uk, and, you know, happy to kind of take any questions or comments that people might have. So once again, thanks for tuning in, and we will be back in touch again soon. Thank you.